No, no, not really. Let's talk about Hindenburg because I found this pretty interesting.
Yeah, so I'll try to keep this as short as possible, but just to summarize for anyone listening, I want to first off, Hindenburg, let's get you a formatter because bullet points for endless bullet points, we got to stop with that. Let's get you a presentation team. But besides that, good report. So Hindenburg is really trying, I would say, to take down India's richest man and expose him as a fraud, which if the report is true, he definitely is. So Hindenburg is the research company that exposed the Nikola fraud. They just wrote a comprehensive research report on this Indian company called the Adani Group, which is apparently committing stock pumping and accounting fraud. So those are the two main allegations. For more information, I would search Hindenburg research online. You can find the comprehensive report. We're not going to cover everything here because that would take the entire show. For a little context, what is the Adani Group, or I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. It is a conglomerate in India run by Gautam Adani. Again, Indian names, might be mispronouncing it. And it's considered a family business. There are seven publicly traded stocks at the time of the report. They had a market value of $218 billion in USD, so quite large, one of the largest companies in India, maybe combined the largest company in India. I'm not exactly sure. And the founder is valued at a whopping $120 billion. So one of the top five richest people in the world. 100 billion of that has been added in the last 3 years because if you look at their stock charts, they are soaring. And the company owns infrastructure assets. So it's not like they were a consumer platform they came up with the next social media product and it just totally went viral like a TikTok. These are not things that are going to be growing at a rate that would allow the stock shouldn't be going up 1,000% in 3 years. So, what is Hindenburg alleging? There are two overarching themes. One, stock manipulation. They have these shell companies that apparently are do wash sales to drive shares higher, and accounting fraud schemes. I have a few quotes here for listeners that I think are important. So here's one of the quotes that Hindenburg said. Quote, we have identified 38 Mauritius shell companies controlled by Vinod Adani or close associates. We have identified entities that are also surreptitiously. Yes, Ryan.
Hold on, Meridius. What is that?
Mauritius,
Explain it.
Mauritius, that's a country.
Okay. Is there? I thought they kept saying Meridius. I thought they
I'm pretty
there
sure
was.
it's a
I thought that
country.
was like a subsidiary that they had. Anyway.
Well, I will
Oh,
confirm.
that's where they have their shell.
Yeah, it's a country in East Africa. I think it's one of those areas where you can do a lot of less regulated stuff, sort of like
All
kind
right.
of some of the Caribbean islands. All right,
Pardon me. Continue.
continuing the quote, we've identified entities that are all also surreptitiously controlled by Vinod Adani in Cyprus, UAE, Singapore, and several Caribbean islands. Many of the Vinod Adani associated entities have no obvious signs of operations, including no reported employees, no independent addresses or phone numbers, and no meaningful online presence. Despite this, they have collectively moved billions of dollars into Indian Adani publicly listed and private entities, often without required disclosure of the related party nature of the deals. For reference, Vinod Adani is the founder's older brother. So right off the bat, that is suspicious, I would say. Doesn't prove anything, but that's suspicious. Here are a few other quotes. I'll try to keep it short. Quote, the Vinod Adani shells seem to serve several functions, including one, stock parking slash stock manipulation, two, and laundering money through Adani's private companies onto the listed company's balance sheets in order to maintain the appearance of financial health and solvency. I'll say that last part again. In order to maintain the appearance of financial health and solvency, this seems like a classic accounting fraud case, classic Enron style fraud, if true. All right, here's another quote. In addition to using offshore capital to park stock, we found numerous examples of offshore shells sending money through onshore private Adani companies onto listed public Adani companies. The funds then seem to be used to engineer Adani's accounting, parentheses, whether by bolstering its reported profit or cash flows, end parentheses, cushioning its capital balances in order to make listed entities appear more creditworthy, or simply move back out to other parts of the Adani empire where capital is needed. To sum it up, they are moving money around to make things look stronger than they appear and at the same time are performing a lot of wash sales and stock manipulation to bump up the stock, I guess. And you can see with the stock prices, they are soaring. And if you look at the Indian market, it is at, you don't want to call it a bubble because I don't know too much about the Indian market, but it is at a premium valuation. Um, if we also look, there are a ton of related party transactions that haven't been properly disclosed. So that's a violation of the Indian securities laws. And then, as another note, the Adani companies have had 5 chief financial officers over the last 8 years, which Hindenburg says is an obvious red flag for potential accounting issues. Lastly, to be fair, as people that do not study the Indian market, we do not know what is true or not in this report. However, if it does turn out to be true, this will be, as they said, the largest corporate fraud in world history. Well, I thought they were talking about American company, and with their, I guess if anyone doesn't know, they did a very big tweet about they're exposing the largest corporate fraud in history. I think a lot of people thought it would be an American company, given their audience and given where they're located. However, we'll take this as a consolation prize because if they did an American company with over a $200 billion market cap, that would have been some company that was huge and
Yeah.
well
But
respected.
it would have been the only thing we talked about this show. I mean, I was a little bummed to find out it was a company I'd honestly never heard of. But okay, I read through most of this. I, I don't think there's any way that they aren't doing something fraudulent. Like obviously there is so much um irregulator. I mean, it's every red flag in the book from like family members running your subsidiaries and stuff to shell companies with zero operations.
Yeah,
Um,
flipping it around, you don't do these things if you are on the up and up.
yeah, no, I mean, uh, and it's just like I don't know, like you can go through all these things. Like there's why do you need 38 shell companies without operations?
Yeah,
There's
good point.
literally no reason. So I don't know. But my thing here is like I doubt anything comes of this because of where they're located.
And
Maybe,
their relationship to the government in India.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, maybe India takes like a closer look or tries to audit them in a way that's like finds them or something. But I think for it to, and there was like Hindenburg said this today, is Adani Group threatened legal action against them. And Hindenburg said, like, bring it on, file a lawsuit in the US, and we'd love to partake. I don't think it's going to happen in the US. It's going to become India's
Yeah.
fraud over there, and nothing's going to come of it. I also think it probably looks bad for India regulatory bodies to have it exposed by an American group, and then like I don't know. Don't you think that's kind of a bad look to say like some American company took down our richest man?
100%. And yeah, he's there, whatever, Bill Gates, Buffett, probably more Buffett, I guess. Richest person in India, one of the richest people in the world. What's interesting though is that it's only going to get bigger and eventually it's going to blow up. Two things here that I was trying to look at, like what the impact could be on this company. I read some article from somewhere. I'm not sure how reliable this journalist take is because the companies are so complicated, but they said that Adani is one of India's biggest business groups, which I guess is true, and is often deemed one that cannot be allowed to fail. So there you go. As well, they talked about how a lot of, I forget what it is, like individual investors at banks and a lot of these pension funds and a lot of stuff owns these Adani enterprise stocks. So if they went full Enron and totally collapsed, it'd be bad for the Indian economy. But here's the flip side though. Are they just going to let it get bigger? Like
Yeah, I don't know.
what happens? Because there's no end game here where the stock shouldn't be down. 80 to 90%.
Yeah, and I remember, uh, I mean, my biggest tell here potentially is this was a pretty damning report. Like if you read through this whole thing, it would be really hard to be an Adani shareholder. But in that report, it said like 30 to 40% of daily volume, like just under half potentially of daily volume is between their own companies, shell companies, they estimate. The
Yeah.
stock after this like hugely damning report barely moved. Like that to me is a tell that like they are not they are the ones that are trading it.
Yeah, and it's weird because you can say on paper this person is worth 120 billion dollars, but in reality, unless they are able to do some sort of stock sale where he gets the cash out and adds on some bag holders, which, as we know, can happen in the US with a public, with some highly liquid stocks, but is not, maybe not, with something that is actually manipulated so much over in India. And not just because it's in India, it's just this unique situation. The wealth isn't there. I just don't know what the end game of this Adani group is. Are they going to, yeah, are they going to just sell a lot of stock and, raise capital or something? Or what? I just don't get, I don't get the deal here because yeah, you can say, okay, I'm worth 120 billion dollars, but your stock's at, I have no idea what it is, but let's say it's an infrastructure company and it's at 20 times book value. Okay, fine. Great. Congratulations.
Well, I think being on the Forbes richest list gives you almost like unlimited access to capital. People like they can probably borrow at will because people are like, well, he's going to pay it back. He's the richest man.
Right. Yeah. And we don't know we haven't looked at their annual report or anything. So we're flying a little bit blind here. But yes, here's before we move on to another topic though, and we'll try to tie it back to, in any investing lessons. How do you avoid investing in companies that could be potentially doing this? Because you can never guarantee that a company you own is not committing fraud. As Buffett once said, then this is a paraphrase. He said, there's likely fraud going on at Berkshire Hathaway right now. We just don't know it. You can't stop, at some level, there probably is from someone. So at large enough companies, there's going to be fraud. But what about not when it's fraud from the top? How do you kind of look for the telltale signs? I'll give a couple. One, it is the complicated ownership structure and complicated corporate structures that you cannot understand. Two, it is the, how do I say it? The earnings don't turn into cash flow, I guess, in a manner where you can make sense of it. If you get what I mean, where you can't say, okay, this did this and this should turn into cash, but where is it showing up? That's clearly what's going on here, I believe, if the Hindenburg report is true. But what do you think, Ryan? Any other red flags? I mean, the executive turnover has got to be one. The financial department stuff, shenanigans have always got to be something.
Well, yeah, I mean, um, 5 CFOs in 8 years, that's a red flag. Um, the biggest one, and because you read through this and you think like, damn, it would have been really hard to with like the shell entities, unless you did some like real investigative work, like it's hard to figure that stuff out. Um, so just like understanding the corporate structure, for one, invest in geographies where you understand the rule of law, that you trust the rule of law. That maybe the auditor that hasn't saved everyone, but like an auditor with a stellar
Oh,
reputation.
yeah, they talked about their auditor is for the Adani group is a total
Sham.
not a
Um,
sham. I don't call it a sham, but I think they have captured that auditor group because it's so tiny, and they're probably their largest client by far.
yeah. So I don't know. It's like hard to find these ones. I guess there's a lot of just gut feel around management. Also, if a company larger than I would say $50 billion is up, what was it, 1,000% in 3 years?
I think it was three. Honestly, I think it was 3,000, but I don't remember exactly. Let's say at least 1,000%.
If I ever see that, like that type of growth, it's like you got to stop and pause. Even if the
Oh, I mean,
results are phenomenal on paper, it's like obviously that can't continue forever, you know.
yeah, it's honestly, if that happens, it's uninvestable to me for multiple years following.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
this is just like, and I think this is so important for people to look at because again, it comes back to that, we're Buffett and Munger fanboys, the classic Munger quote, I want to know where I'm going to die so I don't go there. And that's really this. Like, this is a good lesson in that because if you're an investor in the Adani group, you're saying like you could die, like not actually die, but you could die. And basically what he means by die, what Munger means by die is permanent loss of capital. And this is the situation where you could die. And you just don't want to go there. Why would you risk jumping off doing some evil Knievel stud if we're going to do this analogy further? But I think that covers that unless you have anything else, Ryan.
Let's do personal